All right, mute is off and we are underway. Hi, Gagi. How are
Hi,
you?
John. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. We've got
Awesome.
a great little conversation tonight to have with the group around profit and cash flow, which is always a pretty hot topic, no matter what time of year and no matter what economic season we're experiencing at the moment. So great to have you with me tonight as we get into the session. I'll just bring up our slides before so we can sort of refer to something go through. But yeah, anything before we jump in and dive in you'd like to share?
Yeah, too easy. Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. My name is Gargi. I'm part of the team here at ProTrade United. So thanks for jumping on and joining us for the session. To kick off, before we jump into the session and dive into some content, some great features. Part of the Zoom platform is the ability to connect and engage throughout the session as well. So John will make this really interactive. So if there's anything you wanted to connect on, ask queries about. I'll be here to support you from both the engagement perspective and also from technical space as well. So you're more than welcome, as John shared there, to pop in a little message in the little chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you wanted to connect with each other, connect with ourselves with any questions or queries, you're more than welcome to reach out. So that's the best feature to stay engaged throughout the session, and throughout it, John will ask a few questions. So this is the best way to respond as well. And then following the session, we'll all be sending out a recording as well. So you'll have a copy of the session as well by tomorrow.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful. Well,
that's
you basically did a great introduction for yourself
it.
there, Gagi, which was perfect. And Gagi's our general manager, and she's been great at assisting us in delivering these sessions. And as she mentioned, you've got the chat box at the bottom of your screen there, and it would be terrific to hear from you. If you can see us, you can hear us. Type in, say hi. We'd love to know what type of business that you have. Where are you located? That would be terrific as well. Whereabouts across Australia and New Zealand are you running your business from? And through the session, I may ask you to share what's come up for you, what's been valuable for you. What do you think is going to be something you can implement into your business? And as Gargi mentioned, you'll get a recording at the end of the session as well. So type away, chat away. It's important to keep your hands busy as well as we go. And I know Gargi will acknowledge you as we flow into the session. So let's dive in a little bit about, while you're chatting away here, a little bit about us. If this is your first time on one of our sessions, it's great to have you. And if you're a regular, and I can see a couple of names there who have jumped on previously, which is terrific. You're a repeat attendee. Listen, we work with the construction industry across Australia and New Zealand to consciously stabilize or streamline their business, which is giving them options. And we'll talk about that when it comes to profit and cash flow tonight. If you want to grow your business, and how do you do that with sanity, and profitability. But also the last part of the jigsaw is the succession plan. If you do want to step off the tools, who's going to step in? If you want to choose a role or you want to sell it, that's also a great option. How do you do that and get great value for what you've built as well? So that's a little bit about how we play the game in the construction process industry. And we have a really detailed, structured process. So if you want to move to that blue level, which is blue level on our business mountain, we have a step-by-step approach which navigates you safely up that journey of business. And the metaphor of like climbing a mountain is exactly why we've created that structure around. Some beautiful clients that we work with, husband and wife teams, in all trades, from obviously residential and commercial building to fencing to plumbing to plastering to painting to HVAC to refrigeration, tiling. You name it, we can assist and work with the individuals who have that trade background there as well. So that's a little bit about us. We've also got a great book out called Not Just a Tradie, because who we see you as is as an individual, a conscious leader, someone who makes decisions on a day-to-day basis. What you do is your trade, but that's not who you are. who you are as someone who has the ability to make great decisions, great choices, and navigate that journey of being a business owner. And so we've got a physical book. It's out on Audible, on Spotify, on Amazon, or you could purchase it through us as well. We give you a real grounding in how to help navigate that journey up the business mountain as well. So, Gagi, just a quick check-in. Who have we got on the session that we might want to say hello to?
Yeah, we've got a few people across the country, which was great, country and New Zealand. We've got some located in Melbourne in automation engineering, amazing. Got some plumbers, even as far regional as Mackay, and then we've also got some
Beautiful.
painters as well. So Trevor, I recognise you, Trevor. Welcome back to
Yeah,
the session. So yeah, I've got a wide range of trades as well joining us.
beautiful. Beautiful. So please don't be shy, tap away. And if there's any questions you have, Gagi would love to support you in that, or, facilitating it through myself as well. So let's do a quick check-in here. The reality in business of those who make money, profit, and those who don't, where are you? Because the numbers that we work with, and these are very round figures, 40% tend to, consistently lose money. 30% just getting by, 20% make a small take-home profit, and then there's a small percentage who make a solid profit above that 10%. Now, 10%, I would say, is the new break even. Zero is not break even, and most trade businesses are one dodgy or, one bad month away from having to, close the doors in a lot of cases. Now, I've been in every one of those categories, so I can relate emotionally and physically to what that journey is like. And our goal at Pro Trade United is to ensure that if you join on with us in our community, that you're in that bottom line there, that you're consistently above 10%. In fact, we aim for 15% plus for our clients. So wherever you are, there's nothing wrong. There's no judgment. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just the reality of where you are. And let's see what we can do to nudge that little dial as well. And why does it matter? Listen, it might make common sense, but money is just a currency, as is time and as is energy. But what cash and profit does, it gives you options, it gives you choice. And really, that's what I think a lot of you as business owners or business leaders have started a business for, is to give you some options. It gives you some choice. And that's what we'd love to work with you on tonight. So a little story about Paddy and Mick, a couple of Irish fellas who had moved out to Australia, and in their good-looking days, they were sitting on the beach on the Gold Coast, and they saw all the people enjoying the beautiful weather, beautiful sand. And Paddy said to Mick, he said, "Listen, I've got a great idea." He says, "We should set up a watermelon business." And this is before sort of the big chain supermarkets. He says, "You like watermelons, I like watermelons. I think a lot of people like watermelons. So why don't we do that?" And Mick said, "Paddy, that's a great idea." So they bought themselves a little ute, and off they went to the Brisbane markets every day. They filled up their back of their truck with watermelons, bought them all for $1 each back in the day, drove down to the Gold Coast, opened up the back of their truck, and sold them for $1. Bought them for $1, sold them for the $1. And they thought it was great. Business was booming. They could not keep up demand. And this went on for a few weeks, few months. And then one day, exhausted, sitting on the beach where everybody was enjoying themselves, Paddy said to me, he said, "Something's not right here." He said, "We are flat out. We cannot keep up with the demand. Yet we're not making any money. We're not quite sure what's going on here." They sat there for a while, scratched themselves, scratched their heads, had a drink. And then Mick jumped up. He said, "Paddy, I've got the solution." And Paddy said, "What?" He said, "We just got to buy a second truck." Now, you might laugh at the ridiculousness of that story, yet I see it every day in the trading construction industry. People think the key to profitability is just having a bigger business, doing more work. It is not the magic solution. If you are not profitable with one van, putting a second or a third van on the road is not going to make you any more profitable. It'll just give you the same headaches with more zeros on the end. Yeah, and I know some of you who are on this call can relate to what I'm talking about. So take away the irony of the story and come back to your own personal situation. What we want to make sure is that growing your business without being profitable first is not the solution. And we get that there's headaches, there's things that are keeping you up at night. There are things where life or business is not flowing. And I want you just to consider if there's one area of your business that you could fix, you could wave the magic wand right now, what would that be? And I'd love you to tap away into the chat box as we go. And just to, again, no right, wrong, good or bad. Where do you, feel any of that anxiousness, maybe a bit of stress, uncertainty as you're, playing the game of business? And again, there's no right, wrong, good or bad. Thanks, Gagi. What is hardest for you? So the reason we ask that question is so I can tailor make some of the content today into this session, but also understanding that there's two things to consider here. You're not alone. There's lots of other businesses like you. Now, the challenge with the trading construction industry is that even though there are businesses who are experiencing the same challenges as yourself, dealing with it in the same way as everybody else doesn't work. Because the majority of people don't ask for guidance, they don't ask for support, they feel ashamed, they feel embarrassed, so they go around doing what they think everybody else is doing. And that is not the solution. Yeah. So what we want to have a look at today is understanding what the biggest barrier to consistent profit and cash in your business. And unfortunately, and the most painful thing, it is you. Because what we tend to find with business owners, if they don't know and don't understand their business, asking for help or seeking some guidance, and if they don't ask, they don't care. Yep. So they don't know, they don't care enough, or they allow the emotions or the feelings getting in the way. Now, what I want to share with you in your business is that here's straight down the line. If you don't know the numbers in your business, you don't know your business. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. You might say, hey, we've got great customers, they love us, we've got great feedback, great reviews. But if I ask some simple questions, which we'll uncover tonight, and you don't answer those or don't know them, then you don't really know your business. Yeah. And the numbers tell the story, and the story is in the numbers. And this is where understanding the principles we're going to chat about are quite simple. In fact, it's only the 20%. It's the practical steps you can take. It's not complicated. It's quite simple. The biggest barrier is you. The biggest barrier is overcoming the internal resistance to either change or being comfortable with the uncomfortableness of your current situation. Classic example for most businesses, to improve their profit margin, they could put their prices up. If you haven't put your prices up in the last 12 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even reviewed your pricing in the last 3 months, then you are behind the 8 ball. Things are changing rapidly out there in the marketplace. Now, it's not complicated to tweak your pricing. You've just got to go into the software, whatever you're doing to, put on your margin or mark up and make the change. The biggest barrier is the story you now start to tell yourself about why you can't put your prices up. Okay? And we won't go down that journey tonight, yet I just wanted to share that with you because we see it every single week with our clients in the groups that we lead and support them through those changes that may need to be made. The other thing that gets in the way, what we call, is the tradie chatter. Being in the trading construction industry comes with a bit of a legacy. And in a lot of cases, that isn't so great. Everyone tends to do what everybody else is doing. I'll work out where my pricing needs to be and I'll be the average. If it ain't working, I'll just get up earlier, stay a bit later. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to look too successful. I want to be successful, but not too successful. Or we have what we call that tall poppy syndrome. I've never been good with numbers, so I have this store in a belief and I start buying into my excuses and I give more value and energy to my excuses than I do have to my future. Business is a struggle and struggle is noble. I'm not smart enough. And who am I to be wealthy, financially well off and free? And that's what goes on here. Chat, 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 chat. And you may want to give a little bit of a thumbs up, a bit of an acknowledgement and go, yep, that's me. I tell you what, it's good and it's okay because was me and has been in my past for many years. So I know exactly what that could be like. So let's look at some of these mistakes that you may be able to relate to. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these, but just to give you a snapshot. Yep. So the biggest mistakes we see with business owners in the industry is they confuse busyness with profitability. Busyness is laziness. If you're busy, there's an element of choices that you're not making to change the way things are going. Messy and inaccurate bookkeeping. Again, if you don't have a classic story that you can look at, okay, then you're not going to know where your business is at. You're not charging enough for labor on jobs. You don't have any cash reserves. You don't have a little buffer. You don't have a little cushion just in case. You've only got one bank account. It's like a mosh pit, in and out, but you don't know the status of where things are at. You price your jobs based on the little bit below, a little bit less, a little bit more than the average of others. You're not aware of what your break even is, and we'll talk more about that. You're not back costing or job costing, which is tracking how you went versus what you wanted. You're discounting to win work. Absolute no. Okay. And I'm going to share with you a bit more about that. And there's no cash flow forecast. You don't know what your bank account balance could be in the next week, month, 3 months. And that's just the start. Now, again, if you can relate to some of that, cool. It's okay, because those mistakes come from what we see in the industry each and every day. So the fundamentals, I'm just going to run through with you. This is some of the language that we're going to play with tonight. Yeah, that to give you an understanding of where we're going to relate to, these are the things that I'm going to talk about. So at the top, we're going to have your sales income. And then once we have your sales income, we're going to take away what we call the cost of goods sold, or your direct costs, the things that you have to pay for to generate the income: materials, labor, equipment, subcontractors, contractors. Yeah, that gives you what we call your gross profit. That's what we call your real income. Your top line income, that's just a vanity number, and gross profit is the reality. Yep, we're going to take away what we call your overheads or operating expenses. These are the things that happen every week, every month, regardless: insurance, software, office, admin, non-billable employees, vehicles, etc. And that leaves us with what we call our net profit, or a pre-tax profit, or the accountants call it earnings before interest and tax. Yep. So some numbers we put to that is, here's $1 million of sales income. Say we have 550,000 of job costs. That leaves us with a real income, or a gross profit, of 450,000, 45%. That's not good, bad, right, or wrong. This is just an example. We then have what we call our overheads, which are those operating expenses. And that leaves us with a net profit of $150,000. Yeah. Now, again, that's just an example. So before we dive in and have a look at these 5 ways, team, let's just have a quick check-in with Gargi. Let's find out what's been valuable so far, if you'd like to tap away, or anything else, Gargi, as far as questions that may have come up along the way.
Yeah, 100%. So John, some of the things that have come up in terms of originally when you were asking about where are things not flowing, what's been, I guess, the barrier. Some of the things that have come up are, organization and workload, financial, so tax,
Yes.
and finding the right staff.
Yeah. Oh, Lee. G'day, Lee. Hey, Lee. Good to have you on the session, my friend, fellow Sunshine Coaster. Beautiful. So I see that, yeah.
Yeah, and
Panel's
Ben's
plumbing.
just,
Sorry?
Sorry, and then we've also got another question that's come through. And this is more maybe for when we dive in a bit further, John, because I know there's some content that you'll dive into about how many bank accounts should I have?
Yeah, great question. And Ben, we will cover off on that.
Yes.
And just to give you an example of how to sort of manage some cash flow in your business as well. So great. Keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming. I saw there 25 to 30% profit. That's a net profit, what you're keeping after paying you a salary, because that's the thing we want to keep in point is a business is there to provide you with a salary and a profit. So if you're making 25% net profit after all expenses and after paying you a salary, that's mighty juicy. So well done. If there's a few other costs to still come out of that, it's not necessarily a net profit, but thank you for sharing. Beautiful. All right, we'll keep the flow as we go. So thanks for those comments. Thanks, Gargi. So Number one, what we want to do is, as I said, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. So understanding your key numbers is absolutely vital. And this is the language. Remember, financials is like learning a foreign language, particularly if it's not something you've ever been taught. If you learn a foreign language, whether it be Japanese or Indonesian or it's French or, Spanish or Cantonese, understanding the lingo and understanding the basics is the starting point. And that's the same with your numbers. So gross profit, what you keep after paying all of your job costs, that's the real income. Yeah. Break even, how much do you need to generate in top line revenue to just keep the doors open? Yeah. How much work do you have booked into the future? One of the things I always like to know is, what does your pipeline look like? Because you might, have a bank account that's healthy now, but what's your future looking like? And that can assist us to work with you. And what does your cash flow look like? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months time, based on how much work you've got in the pipeline, based on your outgoings and your regularity of the money hitting the bank account as well. That's not all the key numbers, but there's a good snapshot. And if you can have access to that quickly from your bookkeeping or from your job management software, terrific, because that helps tell a story. Yeah. So here's a sample business. And again, no right, wrong, good or bad. But what we want to have a look is there's some clean financials, easy to see, easy to know where the business is at. Yeah. So in this situation, gross profit. So we've got total income, trading income at the top of $253,439. And then we have all of these costs of sales. So we're removing all of these, and we can clearly see on this report what all of those costs are. And that tells us that we keep 138,000, or we keep around 54.6% of every, 54 cents in every dollar that we generate. Yeah. So the next question I often get asked is, well, what should my GP be? What should my GP be? And the answer is more than it is right now. And the reason why it's more than it is right now, because every business is slightly different. Now, there could be some benchmark figures based on whether you're in plumbing, electrical, landscaping, painting, plastering, depending on which industries that you're working, whether you're commercial, whether you're residential, industrial. Yet my suggestion is we need to get a benchmark of what your GP is now and how do we tweak it and improve it, even if it's 1 or 2%. Because a higher GP means we can have a lower break-even amount. We have more to invest in marketing, training, growth, etc. It indicates an efficient, stable, and valuable business, a higher operating profit, and caters for the occasional loss on a job. Yep, so a higher GP is always more beneficial as we go. Knowing your break even, and as we said, this is the point whereby your income covers all of the costs of running your business. And the two key numbers to know around that is you need to know your GP margin and your monthly operating expenses. And here's an example that we're going to play with. So in this business, the overheads from the example before on an annual basis were $300,000. So remember what they were there, like insurances, software, motor vehicles, admin, office-based salaries. So a GP of 45%, okay, means that the break even, this business needs to generate $667,000 in top line job income just to cover costs. Okay? Now, if we have a cost creep, now let's have a look. Have your operating expenses gone up in the last 6 months? I know ours have, yeah. Whether that be office salaries, whether that be insurances, whether that be your software. Okay. Now, in this situation, if the business has a lower GP, so we have a cost creep at the top end and we have a lower GP. So that could mean a job blowout, didn't price effectively. Okay, what that now means in this business is they have to generate an additional $100,000 more in their business to just cover costs. So this is why you could say, and that can happen in a blink of an eye. This is why, okay, you can see yourself working harder with no more profit. In fact, you could be working harder with less profit. Now, the other way around is if we had and overheads maintain the same. So what we want to make sure is that we are always looking at the costs of running our business. Okay, we're always making sure we've got someone who's reviewing our insurances, our phone, where we're buying, our petrol from, those types of costs. But if we worked on increasing our GP, okay, this business now doesn't need to do any more work. Okay, any more work, yet can cover costs with a lesser amount. Or if they, had the pricing the same, they would generate more profitability. So this is why we want to make sure that your GP is as high as possible. Secondly, we want to make sure 15%, not 10%, is your baseline. Why? Because you have jobs where you're going to make a loss. Yeah, you're going to have weather holdups. You're going to put on a new hire, which takes time to get them up to speed, depending on whether they're on the tools or they're in the office. You have a client that doesn't pay or delays payment. Okay. Or you don't think you deserve a 15% pre-tax profit. You want to make sure that is now your baseline. That is your new target if you're not making it already. And by the way, that is after paying yourself a market-based salary. And a market-based salary is the salary you would pay someone else to come into your business and do what you do. Okay? So that's what I mean by that. And if that's where your business is super healthy, is if you can be above 15% by paying yourself a market-based salary as well. All right, the third point we want to talk about here is reviewing the way that you price your work. And again, this is specific to the industry and maybe to the customer type that you have and the type of work that you do. But something to consider is gently steering away from hourly rate to more pricing based on the outcome that you deliver. And I'll give you an example. I went to the dentist 3 weeks ago. I chipped a tooth. And the dentist said, yep, we can take care of that today. It's going to be X amount. And I said, the first question I asked is, how long is that going to take? Because I tell you what, I don't like sitting in a dentist chair. I don't know if anybody else does, but to me, I'd much rather eat a bowl of gravel than sit in a dentist chair. I'm traumatized from my childhood experiences. So I asked the question, 20 minutes, he said, and it was going to be something like $350. So I said, okay, thank you, get it over and done with as quickly as possible. Now, if I said $350 for 20 minutes, are you kidding me? Okay, he said, could say, well, I could take an hour. I want the problem solved and the price is the same regardless of how long it takes. Yeah. So value-based pricing reflects the result you deliver, not the time spent. Okay. Clients care about results, not time. The old paradigm of the clock watchers, the clients who are sitting there and, they've got their stopwatch out while you're on site. Okay, they're not the clients that you want anyway. So if you're having those types of clients, well, maybe you should reevaluate the types of clients that you're selecting. But when you sell outcomes, the conversation shifts from price to benefits, problem solving, and results. Hourly rates penalize efficiency. So think about it. If you are the old hourly rate, okay, and it's 100 and something for an hour or whatever it is, but you can get the job done in 15 minutes, okay, because you're efficient, you've invested years in training and upskilling yourself and become a master of your craft, a real specialist, okay? With value-based pricing, you can work efficiently and you can generate more revenue and profitability per hour. So that's what I want you to consider. Again, it's not in a lot of cases for every business, but the majority of businesses could review the way that you're pricing. Okay, you want to set price outcomes to allow you to collect deposits up front, stage payments, and reduce reliance on the back-end invoicing and potential late payments. Set the expectations right up front. This is what it's going to cost. This is the investment. And this is how we're going to manage the payments. And value-based pricing helps separate your brand from the cheaper, for example, trades and attract clients who want certainty and quality, not necessarily the lowest hourly rate. And a great friend of ours at ProTrade, Andrew Griffiths, has got a great book out. And if you haven't read it, download it, listen to it on Audible. You can challenge yourself around being the most expensive. So price to be in the top 10% of your industry. Yep, that's the goal. And deliver on it as well. So people say, you know what? They are expensive, yet they are also the best. Okay, Jared is one of our clients. He runs a commercial electrical company based on the Gold Coast. And one of the things we've definitely supported him with is he's been on the pro trade journey, is understanding his numbers, and particularly around navigating his pricing and to be more value-based versus do and charge. And then also building great relationships with the builders that he works with to ensure that his payment terms are delivered upon. He gets deposits and progress payments made on time to keep his cash flowing along the way. The great thing about Jared is he's super coachable, and he has been nominated for Business of the Year at our upcoming Pro Trade United Gala Award dinner in September as well, which is really cool at the same time. Gargi, I might have a little pause there and see if we've got any questions, any queries, any comments in the chat box. I'd love to hear from anybody about what's been valuable for you so far. What's come up for you? What have you been challenged with? If you are there with an excuse or a reason or a justification of not taking on some of this, my question for you is what's going on there? I'm just sharing with you some simple nuggets that we work with all of our clients on that have helped them transform their profitability and cash flow as well. Gargi, anything there that's come up? I see we'll get to bank accounts in a minute, Ben.
Absolutely. There's a few questions that have flowed through in lines with sent directly to me, John, just about the value that they got from those little tweaks in the GP increase. John, can create is a great lever, but also identifying the fact that when you do have a price creep, it can have an exponential difference in what you need to make as a business to break even.
Yes.
So yeah, that was some value that was provided there that we got through in the share.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it isn't big changes. It's little 1%ers that make the difference. And that's the thing. You don't have to do a lot. In fact, if it comes to profit and cash flow, in 90 days, we can shift and change the dial if you're up for, doing the work. You can, it is one of the simplest areas of your business to get back on track. Yeah. So that's one of the things that, we're committed to with our clients as well. All right. We'll keep moving. Thank you, Gargi. Number 4, we've got a couple to go. Uncover your profit leaks. So if you haven't got consistent profit, cash flow working backwards, the number one thing I'm going to suggest you do is what we call job cost or back cost every job or van. So a job or a project or a van is a profit center, and you want to treat it like a game of football. Okay. You wanted to win. Okay. This was the estimated margin, what had actually happened. Yeah. So you had an estimated result based on your pricing, materials mainly, and labor. What did you actually get? And what's the difference? And we want to be able to monitor our expenses and our efficiencies and have a third party review your pricing. So when was the last time you had someone sit down and actually review your pricing with you and ask questions? Okay, why is it this? How did you come up with that? How are you calculating your markup? What's the margin you want to generate? How are you tracking all of that? Yeah, that's really the key. The first part here is let's have a look at this back costing example. So over on the left-hand side here, we have the main costs in a project: labor, materials, equipment, and rubbish. The estimate, this second column here, says that the total job cost will be $55,500. They quoted $100,909, and therefore, we had a GP estimate of 45%. Now, what actually happened was the total cost was $61,900. The quoted price was the same, yet their GP was significantly less. Now, if you did that and didn't know and just went rolling into the next project without reviewing it, seriously, you don't really deserve to win the game. Now, if you're a coach of a football team and you aren't reviewing how the team played, what they did well, what they didn't do well, and just rolled into the next week, well then, we've got some challenges. So how many projects do you want to do before you realize this? Now, this could be a typical van for a month. You know, they generated $100,000 worth of work, $25,000 a week. You know, the estimated GP was 45%, but they only returned 38.6%. What's missing? What's the gap? All right. So the productivity leaks, what we see is, hey, there's poor logistics or delivery management of materials. There's poor scheduling. Okay, I know that's a really challenging, part of the business, particularly when you've got multiple team players out and about. You've got weather holdups, you've got material holdups. Again, that's all part of the dance. They're not managing budget versus actual labor. If you've allocated 100 hours on a job, where are you at on the journey? You've got errors, you've got rework, you've got the wrong people on your team, bad attitudes, lazy, inefficient, not wanting to deliver. You've got breakdowns of communication, you've got lack of systems or processes, excessive overtime without monitoring that. And there's wasted time. Remember, suppliers, trips to the suppliers during the day. And it's never just a trip to the supplier, is it? It's always a bit of a chin wag, drop by the smoko shop, pick up a couple of things, walking backwards and forwards to the truck, waiting for equipment, materials, missing tools, etc. And this is just a snapshot. Maybe pop your hand up and indicate whether this is something that you've experienced in your business. But straight away, this is where you've got money going down the drain. Bob's one of our masters clients as well. He's based in Southeast Queensland. Him and Elise have worked diligently in efficiencies and generating a higher GP in their business. Bob does work all up and down the Southeast Queensland coast, right up to actually to Townsville. And one of the key things that Bob's worked on is knowing his numbers, understanding what his GP is, and then job costing and back costing, or looking back over each job to work with his team on improving those efficiencies along the way. He's had 2 3-month stints away from his business in the last couple of years, traveling around the beautiful country of Australia with his family. And he's been able to do that because he can monitor his numbers remotely with his business. So he set up those structures in place as well. So a great little win for Bob and Elise. The fifth one, the last part that we want to talk about here to improve your cash flow in particular, is stop being the bank. So what's important is you set up some cash flow structures. If you feel like you're the bank, you're the one who's keeping everyone else afloat. Maybe you feel like your team are getting paid and you're the one who's being left behind at the end. Well, then we've got to get some processes in place. We've got to make sure that you've got clear terms and conditions. You've got to have deposits up front, making sure that invoicing is done promptly. You've got progress payments along the way. So these are the little structures that we can help put you in place. Get full payment on completion. Again, residential, that's a must. If you're in the residential space, we had someone coming out here last week doing some work on our place. And the interesting thing was he went to leave and I said, listen, would you like to fix up the payment right now? He goes, oh, no, I'll send an invoice. I said, no, you're not going to send an invoice. You can do that after I pay you. And so we organized to pay him on the spot because I know how important that is for a small business. I said, now you can send me the invoice or the receipt because he's busy. It would take him a week or 2 weeks to get it through. So make sure you highlight that straight up front. I know in the commercial space, industrial space, there's a few nuances that you have to play with. Now, bank accounts. This is the question that we got asked about. I don't know if I've got a picture here. I do have a picture and I'll show you that as well. But we want to have a minimum of 3 or 4 bank accounts, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And we want a cash flow forecast that can give you an estimate of what your bank account balance will be over the next 13 weeks. So let's have a look at these bank account balances. Now, most businesses just have the one account. Money comes in, money goes out. Whatever's left is there to, live off, benefit from, but it's like a mosh pit. So this is a recommended structure that we have seen work exceptionally well. You obviously have your main trading account. Secondly, you want to have a second account where you take your profit first out of your trading and into a separate bank account, and ideally in a separate bank. So 12:01 a.m. every Monday morning, a set amount comes out of our bank account and goes into a separate bank and that is our profit. So we're putting profit away first. So this is one way to generate and guarantee you're going to have profit in cash at the end of the year. It's about savings first. It's about putting away that first. Automate it. Yep. Automate it and set and forget. Secondly, you want to have a second account. And this is where you put all of your direct costs. So if you've paid for materials, you've got contractors, any other cost of goods, when money comes in, you know what you've allocated for that. Okay, put that aside. Okay, so you've always got it there to pay those materials, contractors, etc. We want another account where you move your GST component, your PAYG, your superannuation. So when you need to pay your PAYG or your BAS or your superannuation, guess what? The money is always there. Yeah? And then essentially what you do is you run the business on whatever is left after you distribute to these buckets. So this way, okay, the allocation, by the way, you know, the GST, the PAYG and the super, it's not your money. Yes, we are glorified tax collectors in one way, shape or form, but you've got to put that aside. Now, once you set up these buckets, okay, and automate it as much as you possibly can or do it weekly, you'll start to see what is left in your main trading account to be able to run the business on. And that pays all of your existing salaries, your overheads, and guess what? You've already got your profit allocated first. So you don't need to worry about what's left. Okay. But as long as there's enough to run the business, you've got profit, which is first, all of your direct costs are taken care of, your obligations for PAY, GST, super is taken care of, and then you've got that bucket left. So that's one way. It's not the only way, but it's a philosophy, and I've seen it work, and in a lot of cases it could be set and forget. So Ben, I hope that answers the question that you had around that, just to start off with. All righty. So I trust those key points have been valuable. Just got one thing to share before we sort of wrap up the session, but we want to keep it simple. Again, numbers doesn't need to be complicated. Yes, you need to understand the language and the lingo, but what we know is that in 90 days, we can assist you to turn around everything in your business financially with the right guidance and support. And that's that bottom level we have on the business mountain. So some quick wins. Okay, what are the things I want you to consider is start measuring gross profit, know your break even, work in advance your pipeline and your cash flow. Yep, some simple things there. Review your pricing monthly, if not quarterly. Okay, what did you want? What did you get? Have a target of greater than 15% pre-tax. Yep. Set up separate bank accounts. You could do that tonight if you're motivated, and back cost every project or every van as we go. So Gargi, I might just bring you back, and as we sort of bring in the last couple of points in a minute, is there anything else that has come up as we go through?
No, great. I know we covered off on some great content, John. A lot to cover up on. But one of the questions that we got through is from Harley, who's written, "We price per job and don't monitor labor as the team could be working on multiple jobs at once. So fabricating stone in the shed. What are your thoughts on best practice on this?"
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
It's going to come back down to, depending on how you monitor the labor for each of those. So it sounds like you're fabricating stone in the shed. Now, whether you're fabricating stone in a shed or you're building a building or you're going from one project to another during the day, out and about, depending, I'm not quite sure if you have any job management software, but job management software allows you to track the labor component for each job. So when you shift from one project to another project, it's very simple to be able to sign off and then sign on to, I shouldn't say sign off, but sign off one project, sign on to another project as well. And most of the good job management softwares today allow you to do that. So then you can see accurately at the end of every day, every week, how much time has been put on the individual projects, particularly if you're working sort of in manufacturing like that. So it'll come back down to, and if you don't have a software in place, for that, Harley, what I'm going to suggest you do is just go back to simple pen and paper. Start with monitoring something. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be funky. Sometimes a spreadsheet, or you have a site foreman or a shed foreman or a factory foreman, and you start looking at that, because not necessarily is the outcome the most important part, just the process and understanding what's going on. Because every time someone switches from one job to another and then back again and then back again, there's slight inefficiencies in all of that. And you can start actually monitoring over a week. You might pay your team 38 hours for 38 hours, but how many of those 38 hours were actually allocated to revenue generating activities? So you might find that, because of the changeover and a bit of downtime here, and that when you actually start monitoring how much has been allocated to each project, that someone you're paying 38 hours for has only been actually on work for 30 hours. You go, interesting. What about if we could take that from 30 hours to 31 hours? And then 31 to 32, 32 to 33. What are those little efficiencies we can start working on? So
that's great,
I
John.
hope that helps.
And I think Harley shared they used Fergus, which is great.
Okay,
fantastic.
Great. Well, I'm sure you can be able to do that on Fergus from what I know.
Yeah, and then got a quick question that's come through here on what is a good markup on materials, and I guess the range here is probably what has been queried. So something that could cost 50 cents and $20, and something that could be up till 3,000. What would be a good
how much time have we got on that question there, Hadison? Great question.
Yeah.
Here's what the general answer to that question is, to work backwards from the net profit you want to generate in your business. You can then work out what gross profit you need to generate. Okay, now your overall gross profit will come as a markup on labor and materials primarily. Yeah. So overall, your material markup, okay, will be generalized across 50-cent items to $3,000 items. Now, the reality is that you can mark up 50-cent items a lot more than you can mark up a $3,000 items. Yeah. So, for example, 50 cents could be a washer, $3,000 could be a hot water system. And so, there's no flat rate for each depending on the price. But overall, what I'm going to suggest is what's your target GP that you want, and that should slot into the overall markup on those.
Great, thanks, John.
All righty. Great questions. Hey, listen, just before we wrap up with an opportunity, how are you traveling for the year? I was chatting to, I've just come back from an extended break, and I was chatting to one of our clients today, and we're into August, and he goes, "Can you believe it's August already?" And I go, "I sort of can." And yeah, it's rapidly coming towards the end of the year. He was saying this is when we get really sort of squeezed to be able to, win work, get projects done before the end of the year. And I said, "How are you, on track or off track?" And he said, "Well, the truth is every day I sort of wake up and just respond. At the moment, he's got a baby due next week and, multiple projects on the go." And I said, "But overall, do you feel like he's on track?" And he says, "Well, overall I do, but some days are a bit foggy." And really what we want to help create with you is a bit of clarity. Are you on track or off track? Where would you like to end up? And what's holding you back from accomplishing all of that? They mentioned we've worked diligently behind the scenes for a really next best step structured process, and love to offer those people who haven't had the opportunity yet to sit down with one of our team. As I said, we've just launched another aspect of our business, which is around helping businesses get set up for sale. And if that succession journey is something that you'd like to explore with us, then we'd love to help you out as well. So this little catch up with one of our team is designed to have you sit down and have a look at where you're going, where would what's getting in the way. We've got a really funky diagnostic digital tool that'll help you understand your current reality. Let's look at those obstacles and then put 1 or 2 steps in place to help get the ball rolling. So we'd love to launch a very simple poll. If it's something that you'd like to take advantage of, just tick yes. If it's something you'd like some more information on, then just click unsure. And if it's a no, it's totally cool. And it's a no as well. So if you can see that, that poll up on your screen, let me just stop my share. And just to make sure that you can see that poll up there. Again, no challenges if it's a no. If it's an unsure, just click unsure. And if it's a yes, yes, please, then the team will be in touch and organise a catch up with one of our team. So, Gargi, anything else that while we've got that up there that we'd love to cover off on?
No, it's been great, John. I know it's a lot to, like I shared, a lot of juicy content to cover in a really succinct amount of time. So, like we shared at the beginning, everything that John shared, presentation with the buckets and the levers, as well as the actions at the end. When we do send across the recording tomorrow, you will have access to that to run through and go through and ensure that you are on track. And then, like John mentioned, the next 90 days is where you can really, see the fruits of those actions that you put into place. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great way to wrap that up. And, the last little thing around that is, change in life happens from inspiration or desperation. We're out either consciously creating our life and our business by design, or we're waking up and unconsciously going into the day and, dealing with things by default. So we love to work with our clients on consciously creating the business and the life that they choose, and acting from inspiration versus waiting until it's desperate measures. Although we definitely can support and help some clients get some quick wins as well. Well, Gargi, thank you for being my buddy on the session tonight and for fielding any of the questions and comments. Thank you, everybody, for being on the session tonight. I trust that you've got some value. We're going to be in touch with those people who said yes for a catch-up and a chat, and look forward to seeing you on a future session as well. Keep doing some amazing things, and we'll see you in the future sometime. Thanks, Gargi. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, John.
And say
Thanks,
goodnight to
everyone.
everybody else. Cheers, guys. Ciao.